This is Tao Unbound, the English language podcast of Tel Aviv University. Please welcome your host, Ido Aharoni, Tel Aviv University's graduate, member of the Board of Governors, lecturer, writer, and veteran diplomat.
Welcome to yet another episode of Tao Unbound. I'm Ido Aharoni, your host, and it is my distinct pleasure to host in our studio today Professor Sivan Toledo.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for being here. And the first question, of course, that comes to mind is about your name. But wait, before we talk about your name, is we have to tell them who you are. So according to the official publication, Professor Sivan Toledo is an Israeli computer scientist, a professor of computer science at the School of Computer Science at Tel Aviv University. And as of October 2020, he serves as the head of the Blavatnik School of Computer Science. Am I saying this correct?
Yes.
And he was born in Tel Aviv. And in 1991, he received his bachelor's degree in mathematics and computer science and a master's degree in computer science within the interdisciplinary program for outstanding student named after Adi Lautman at Tel Aviv University, which is a very, very interesting experience. We will ask Professor Toledo about that experience. In 1995, he received his PhD, his doctorate in computer science from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the most famous and celebrated institutions in the world, which recently was in the news for all the wrong reasons. But his work was titled Quantitative Performance Modeling of Scientific Computations and Creating Locality in Numerical Algorithms. Now, that's heavy, and we'll try to figure that out.
Sure.
But in any event, there's so many other things that you've done. But the first thing is, tell us about where you're from, your family history, and what really brought you to deal with this particular field.
Okay. So like you said, I grew up in Tel Aviv, very close to the university. My family, my parents were immigrants. Both came as children to Israel. My father came from Bulgaria. He was born in Sofia. The name Toledo comes from my father's side. From
the Bulgarian side.
Yes.
So they were descendants of the Jews of Spain.
Supposedly, yes. We know who my grandfather's family was, his father, his uncles, his siblings. He was born in a village near Varna in Bulgaria. So we know back to the beginning of the 20th century. On my paternal grandmother's side, we know the history. The name was Rosanes. There is actually a street named after, not far from here, after one of
right here, off of Kakal Boulevard.
That's right. So he was the grandfather of my grandmother. He was a historian. He wrote a lot, so we know a lot about him. His father also wrote a lot, so we know a lot about his father in the middle of the 19th century on the Danube, in what was the edge of the Ottoman Empire, which turned into Bulgaria. Sephardic family. My mother came from a mixed Sephardi-Ashkenazi family. Her father was born in Turkey. Her mother was born in Safed, in Israel. She was born in Alexandria in Egypt.
What was her maiden name?
Romano.
Romano. Okay, that's another very famous name.
Sephardic name.
Yeah. Wow. So you come from quite a legacy, family legacy.
From legacy. We don't always know what the legacy is.
Yes, correct, and I must say that in your case, and we were discovering more and more about the history and the roots of the Jews that were forced out of Spain and Portugal, and we're learning more and more as we have more access to science. And in fact, we had here in this podcast an archaeologist who shared with us how they use chemistry to discover all sorts of things about the lifestyle of people that lived thousands of years ago, let alone hundreds of years ago.
That's the university.
So when did you discover that you're interested in science, and in particular in computers?
To some extent, during my military service, I served as an intelligence officer, also learned to program. I enjoyed programming a lot during my military service. I worked on software development for part of that time, not the entire time, but part of that time. So I knew I was reasonably good at it. I enjoyed it. I had some very professional introduction to this, not very academic. When I got out of military service, when I finished my military service, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I registered for math and computer science in the university because of that experience. Before my military service, I also considered other types of careers like Middle East history. I had other ideas. After my military service, I registered this, and I registered also and was admitted to the interdisciplinary program. I didn't know whether I would pursue this long-term math and computer science, in the interdisciplinary program, I could basically study whatever I wanted. So
tell us I
discovered that I was good at it. I discovered. I'll tell about the program, but about the interdisciplinary program. But one of the aspects of it was a weekly seminar with people. Some of the people were really incredibly inspiring people. One of them was Sam Winograd. He's a computer scientist who worked most of his career at IBM Research. He came and gave us a talk. I found the talk very inspiring, and I said, okay, now I understand what computer science is at a deeper level, deeper than the courses I was taking. I said, maybe that's the career for me. So I think this was maybe an important point for me.
And later on, you connected professionally with IBM, correct?
Yes. I actually met him when I was a postdoc at IBM Watson Research Center. We didn't really chat. He was fairly old at that time, working on other things that I was working on. But he gave like I said, for young people, very inspiring talk, explaining in some very abstract, elegant way what computer science is, the beauty, the structure, in a very succinct way, and I latched on to that, and
so that our viewers and listeners better understand how unique your experience was at Tel Aviv U back in 1991. So tell us what is the interdisciplinary program at Tel Aviv U?
What is or what was, I'm not sure, because I studied in it, 35 years ago, or almost 35 years ago. So I'm not sure it's exactly the same now. It was started by Professor Yehuda Elkana. He was a Tel Aviv University professor. His specialty was in the history and philosophy of science, and he felt very strongly that the university structure is bogus, broken in some way, doesn't serve its purpose, and came up with very radical ideas. I think I was just a student, or this was even before I was admitted, but I guess he had some kind of negotiation, kind of struggle to start up this program, which was very unusual. Worldwide, it was unusual. Certainly in Israel, completely out of the box. It allowed students. What he felt was broken was the partitioning of the university into what he perceived as rigid disciplines, and he thought that science is done more in an interdisciplinary way, and wanted to allow students from the first day in university to engage in that and to be directed and to prepare for interdisciplinary research and interdisciplinary careers as opposed to very disciplinary careers. And he created a structure in which students were admitted. You could take any courses in the university. You weren't bound by any rules, prerequisites, registration. You could register to any courses that you wanted. He actually encouraged students to take a variety of courses, not to focus on one topic. I didn't really follow that advice. I studied almost exclusively math and computer science. And he saw that I had my own way, and he respected that. But most students who would listen to his advice took a variety of courses. He understood that when you take a variety of courses, you can't fulfill the requirements of any one particular degree. And the structure allowed students to pursue and to receive a master's degree, even though they didn't fulfill the bachelor requirements for any degree. This was very unusual, still is fairly unusual. Also, the structure in which students can take any courses they want from any topics they want is kind of mimics the U.S. Higher education system as opposed to the Israeli one, in which in the U.S. in many universities students commit to a major only at the end of the first or second year, and they can take a broad range of courses in the freshman, sometimes sophomore year. So he created something very unique. Also gave the program gave students scholarships, so that there was a very strong message that we should focus on academics. And those weekly seminars, which were really fantastic, and he somehow created an atmosphere in which even very young students attend very different seminars: history one week, computer science the next week, math the other week, music composition the following week. And we, at least I remember, we took them seriously. We felt that they can give us interesting insights, ideas, understanding, and some of them were really fantastic. Tzvi Yavetz, really Yosef Tal, the Israeli composer. I still remember some of them, and I still remember for very few what they actually said.
Well, I think that, he was proved right, Professor Elkanah, because when you look at the 1990s and certainly the first 2 decades of the 2000s, what you see is a celebration of variations of this approach, not only on campus, off campus. For example, TED Talks. What is TED Talks if not a celebration of interdisciplinary content, where people come out of those conferences, they feel like they were, their creativity was energized and boosted. So what are the intellectual foundations that you took away from this experience and implemented when you went to MIT?
None, I think.
None.
None, yes. And something similar also happened to me when I was on sabbatical at MIT as a young professor years later, in the sense that I came out of a structured experience feeling that I gained a degree or I gained employment, but I didn't come out with any kind of intellectual baggage that would propel me forward. But there were some layers, sediment that sank deep and then bore fruit later. But it wasn't like something where I went through the program and it set me on a course and that's it. No, I graduated from that program. I enjoyed it. I had great friends. I was allowed to, like I said, take courses as I wished, and I had a good academic undergraduate and master experience in Tel Aviv University. Then I went to MIT, and for me it was really completely different. I tried to figure out how to integrate there, how to do well, how to find my path. I started, my master's here was in computational geometry, which is a branch of theoretical computer science. So I was assigned to the theoretical computer science research group at MIT as an incoming PhD student. I realized over the first year that I didn't really want to do pure theory, and I found an advisor, a supervisor, PhD supervisor, Charles Leiserson. He was a theoretician, but was very committed to implementing, to having an impact on the practice of computing, not only on the theory of computing. He did that repeatedly over his career, and I think I latched on to that, to doing things that, if possible, have some theoretical underpinning with the intent of having an actual impact on the practice of computing. And if that would require me to do work that doesn't have theoretical underpinning, I'll do that. So the more important driver is having an impact. And if you can do this with the theoretical basis, that's fantastic. That's more solid, that's more beautiful.
So tell us about your work about numerical algorithms.
So in algorithms, when a lot of computer science is about designing algorithms, in order to do that in the environment of Moore's law over 50 years, when computers were getting faster and faster, so computers are not a fixed machine. Computer scientists didn't perceive computers as a fixed machine, but they needed to create algorithms, methods to use these machines that would also be useful on machines 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when we knew that the machines would be very different. So computer scientists developed methods to analyze algorithms to predict the performance, whether an algorithm would run quickly, run slowly, would require a lot of power from the electricity grid or a little power from the electricity grid, in a kind of an abstract way that counts operations and doesn't really predict, is not very predictive in the engineering sense of the running time or the power required, but gives us a more mathematical sense of whether the running time will remain reasonable or will become unreasonable in the future. What my thesis and a lot of the work I did afterwards was based on the observation that counting operations is not always the most expensive or important part in a computation, but actually moving data from one place to the other, from one memory to another memory. A lot of time is spent on this, a lot of power, energy is spent on this. This was just in the beginning, in the early 90s. Now it's well understood that this is the most important thing to optimize. And I started looking at methods to reduce the amount of data movement in a given computation, to find out whether we go to the minimum data movement possible, whether there is a limit, whether you have to move a certain amount of data. That was my thesis. Proposed 2 or 3 theoretical algorithms for this. I then discovered more frameworks or methods to design algorithms that have good properties, more lower bounds, more theoretical proofs that say that for this computation you have to do a lot of communication and so on. So this was the.
So let's talk about your current role right now as the head of the Blavatnik School of Computer Science. So tell us a little bit about the school. What's the size of the school? What are the topics that you guys cover? And even if you want to talk about the venue itself, the physical, because you have a brand new building. Everybody's talking about your building on campus.
Yes, it's a large school. Our job in the university is to do research in computer science and to teach computer science. We are about 50 faculty members, about 250 master's students, about 100 PhD students who also help the graduate students, both at the master's and the PhD level, help a lot with teaching. More than 1,000 undergrads. We admit about 450 undergraduates every year. Faculty members and courses cover, I'd say, most of the areas of computer science. Traditionally, we were very strong in theoretical computer science. Now we are also very strong in machine learning, artificial intelligence. There are other there are groups working on programming languages, on software engineering, on databases, data science. Fairly diverse. For me, as the head of the school, as a faculty member in the school, we understand the significance of computer science to the university. I understand the significance of computer science to the Israeli economy. One of the things that I'm proudest in my tenure as the head of the school is that I found a way to increase the number of undergraduates that we admit, and to increase the fellowships of PhD students who help teach them. We were always very concerned about the quality of education. We resisted. We didn't want to grow quickly because there was a real fear that growing quickly in terms of the number of graduates, even though it might help the economy, would force us to compromise on the quality of the education that we offer. So enlarging the school, extending the number of students we admit, had to be done in a way that still maintains small recitation sections, that students can ask questions from their TAs in relatively small groups and so on. And we had to find the right structure to do that. So, and that even before I was appointed, certainly after I was appointed, there were discussions in the media. We had people, industry leaders coming to us, visiting and telling us how important it is to educate more computer scientists in Israel, how important it is to the economy, and we try to do our role. We are very proud of graduates who go on to academic careers and top research careers in industry. We have our graduates are professors at MIT, at Berkeley, at ETH Zurich, many top universities, all the Israeli universities. Some of them are with us. We are very proud of this, but we also understand that part of our job is to generate every year a large number of graduates, computer science graduates, single major, double major, who are well-trained and who would feel important industry positions, would contribute to the economy, would contribute to the growth of computer science in general in Israel and worldwide.
In terms of international interface, I'm interested in two aspects. One is international students that are coming from abroad to study in your school. And secondly, other universities that you are working with, collaborating, joint research, joint implementation of projects and so on.
In terms of international students, we don't have many. We teach in Hebrew. At the master's and PhD level, we do have some international students, not many. The teaching switches to English if there is a non-Hebrew speaker in the class. Now we are starting to work on offering some of our courses more of our courses in English. Some of even the undergrad are offering in English to allow some of the Tel Aviv University international programs to offer computer science courses to exchange students, to students in joint programs like the program with Colombia. I hope that will materialize in the next years. We weren't focused on international students because of the same rationale that I explained before, because we were told by our environment, academic environment and social environment, that we should focus on generating as many high-quality graduates for the Israeli economy as possible. So that's where we put the emphasis on trying to enlarge the number of graduates who undergo the Hebrew-speaking program, as opposed to trying to split and to offer international programs. Now like I said, we'll try to accommodate both in the next few years. In terms of for graduate students, for faculty members, there is very extensive collaboration with colleagues all over the world, in Europe, in the US, especially in Europe, in the US, also in Singapore. Very extensive collaboration. That's how science is done today.
That's fascinating. Now, you know that most of our listeners and viewers are friends of the university, people that follow the university, and many of them, I'm sure, are fascinated, just as I am, with the work that you do in your incredible school, and they're probably asking themselves, how can they become involved, either through connecting family or children or grandchildren to your school, or supporting the school in any way, shape, or form. What would you suggest to those people interested in the work of the school? What should they do?
So the most intimate type of engagement, of course, is to come study with us, come work here. We have international faculty. We have people who move here from other countries, not many, but some Israelis, some non-Israelis, people who come to pursue a PhD here, come to pursue a postdoc. And like I said, we're going to offer more courses in English, certainly for kids abroad who grew up in Israeli families who might be able to study in Hebrew, maybe after a year of preparation. I think coming to Tel Aviv University to pursue a degree as opposed to pursuing a degree in the US or Europe is a fantastic way to try to connect with their family roots to see whether they like it here or they want to go back. I think that's maybe, like I said, the most intimate way. If somebody entrusts their kids with us, we feel honored, whether they live in Israel or they live abroad. That's the most important aspect. We do have friends, donors, people who follow us. Sometimes these collaborations are fantastic, and I think they're fantastic. When they work well for both sides. That's as a head of the school, I see this. I was the liaison for the construction of the Checkpoint building. Checkpoint, the company, some of its leaders contributed. It worked for us, it worked for them, gives them visibility, gives us visibility, gives the university visibility, gives visibility to the fact that industry and the university are tightly connected and work together to achieve goals. I think that's a fantastic example. They were engaged throughout the project, trying to make it as best they could. And also smaller donors. Now some of our graduates started donating funds, and they group together and they donated a fund to promote what they thought was important. They wanted to promote entrepreneurship among our graduates, and they donated a fund to promote that. And as a result of that, of their initiative, we opened a joint program, a degree program in computer science with a cluster in entrepreneurship in collaboration with the Kohler School of Management. So again, benefactors who are engaged, who are giving back. I think that's awesome. Yeah. And also families, we benefit from donations of two families who gave to the school in the 1990s and who keep coming every year to ceremonies to celebrate excellence of the students with us. One of them, the son of the original donor, his father gave 30 years ago, and last year he gave us another very nice donation because he still felt connected. I think these become family legacies. It's incredible.
And I think what I'm hearing from you is also that you are open-minded in terms of flexibility, and if people want to do unique things, you're willing to talk to them about that, and I think that's wonderful.
That's Israel.
That's Israel, and that's also, I think, good leadership.
I came back, moving between countries there's always a culture shock, and even returning is a culture shock. When I returned from sabbatical, a 2-year sabbatical at MIT, you undergo a small culture shock, readjusting to Israel. It's not easy. And after maybe a few weeks or maybe a couple of months, I felt frustrated because I felt there are so many things that were easier to do at MIT. You have an idea, you ask an administrator or a colleague, and they say, "Oh, sure, we have a procedure for that. You just have to fill up the form." And here, people say, "Oh, that's probably impossible." After a couple more months, I realized that the envelope of what you can do here is actually larger than at MIT. It's easier to do things there, but if you want to go outside the box, it's much easier in Tel Aviv University than in a big American university. So like I said, being flexible is who we are.
Right. And I think that and that's one of the secrets of the success, of the great success of your school and the university in general. I have so many questions to ask you, but I really would like to ask a question that I know is on the minds of the people that are listening to us. So looking forward, you are not only a researcher, you're also an educator. And looking forward, what would you say would be the new frontier for computer science?
I have no idea. We are at an inflection point that is very clear. That is clear both on the hardware side, because like I said, for 50, 60 years, computers were getting faster and faster every year. That's kind of grinding to a halt. maybe not completely stopped, but slowing down, and this will stop. We know the physics are such that it will stop. And at the end of those 50, 60 years, we look back and we start to realize how much of what we've done is driven by the dynamic. The dynamic of the hardware generated the culture of computer science, if you like. And when the dynamic changes, the culture will change. How it will change, it's very hard to say. Very, very hard to say. And preparing for this, I mostly wrote a blog, Life in Academia, in Hebrew, about experiences. Since I became the head of the school, I kind of stopped writing. You can't write about how you manage. You have to manage, not to write about publicly about how you manage. But I read some of the old blog posts. One of them was from 2008, was a recollection of a talk I heard by a colleague at MIT who was a Turing Award winner, Butler Lampson, about the history of computer science in 2008 and what will come next. And I read the section, the paragraph about what he thought in 2008 would be the next great thing. It didn't nail it.
Was it? Yeah.
Okay, yes. It's very hard to predict the future.
Yeah.
But I think what we understand, that's important. We understand that we provide students graduates with education that will need to suffice for 30, 35 years of their career. People keep learning, but they learn the foundation here, and the foundation need to be solid so that they can carry on with their career. It's a big responsibility. That's why we move slowly. We don't change quickly. We understand the responsibility. We understand that we are at a period of change, and we are starting to make the change, but we are looking around to see what needs to be done, and only then we react in order to preserve what we have, not to lose the treasure that we have in the degree programs, the educational programs, but to adapt them responsibly. One thing we did recently is to make the introduction to machine learning from an elective to a mandatory course. Okay, so that's part of the response, but it's a slow response. That is, we offer many more electives today in machine learning than we did 5 years ago. We understand that these are the tools we need to equip students with, but we move slowly in order not to get derailed.
Well, Professor Toledo, I can't thank you enough for spending the time with us. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We have to end our podcast right here. But I learned so much about your school, about your style of leadership, about your vision, and also about how difficult, as Yogi Berra said, how difficult it is to make predictions, especially about the future, as he said. So on this note, I'd like to thank you for spending the time with us here in the studio.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to interview you again in the near future.
Certainly.
And from our humble studio, goodbye until our next episode.